So, could you practice the idea, if not the application just yet, but the idea that I get to feel empowered not knowing? I get to collect information. I mean, why would Google be so successful if we weren't all seeking or searching for some kind of answer? Hi there. Welcome to Intuition, your success compass. And thank you for joining me today. If this is the first time here, hi, I'm Vicki. If you've been here or you're familiar with the podcast, thank you for coming back. I really appreciate it. As I've been doing over the last four or five episodes, I've been sharing the idea of the compass and how I have come to see it as a directional tool in my life and using those directions in a very conscious way and in a way to not only embrace my own being and to help my clients do that, but to enhance intuition and to be able to use all of our skill sets in that way. And I had a whole other podcast planned for today that I was going to do following up, more tools and all of that of development. But I'm feeling rather inspired to share something that I wrote recently in my morning journaling and to be a bit vulnerable with you and also invite you to be so as well. Because I really think that this is a theme that I was feeling within myself, absolutely. But also, I see it in the clients that I work with. I have discussed it with friends and everything and their experience of being a human and a soul in this process. And I thought, you know what, let's just go ahead and share, roll with it, whatever comes to mind, using the journal entry that I did last week sometime as a guidance. Because I am here, I really believe, to help people, to help all of you, to help myself draw in and just align, but also help every aspect of ourselves to work together. So that soul portion, our human portion, our intelligence, our humor, all of the emotions, helping to heal your child self and to embrace being an adult because it can be a lot of fun. So the experience I had was Mike and I had gone to Quebec City for 5 days and I don't speak French, and neither does he. And we've done Montreal a couple times. I did Montreal a few times before meeting him, but that one is a little bit easier because it's more of a border, and people are more likely to speak English as well. So it was a good intro, but also easier on us, right? We didn't have to actually work so hard to communicate. Well, Quebec City is not necessarily geared towards tourists. Old Quebec City, but not the surrounding areas. And I freaking loved it because I felt like I was part of a real community, even as a visitor. I felt like that because I like the day to day going on. I don't like the tourist trap stuff. It's okay to do that one day or a few hours while you're on vacation. And I am not someone that wants to do everything that every tourist trap is. It's just not my jam. So while we were there, we did a lot of walking. We did the nature trails. We walked through the city. We I mostly ate sushi actually because I have a challenge with gluten and dairy. I'm fun and a vegetarian. So it did take a little bit to line up the food thing, but this is part of I'm getting somewhere with this. In the experience of this, I actually realized that I wasn't feeling insecure. And to go back a little bit, I will always act on the outside like I've got everything together because that was imperative to me as a child for survival, but also because my parents often looked to me to provide direction and to be the one to speak of what should we do now. And not my father so much, but my mother would let me know what was going on behind the scenes and what she resented and all of that. So played a therapist from a very young age, but also a problem solver and also the person who had to turn down all of her needs because those around her needed a little bit more. And at times that was fine, didn't phase me in the least because I like to believe I'm a very giving person of that. And at other times it was somewhat emotionally crushing. And it's taken me a long time to be able to say, this is what I require in a relationship. That's not okay for me. So, yes, I very much learn from helping my clients to develop this. So, while we were away in the very early parts, I realized, oh, I'm not feeling like an imbecile because I'm in a country where I don't speak the language. And that's what my inner critic would say. You're not smart enough previously. You're not smart enough. You should have figured this out. Why didn't you have this? Why weren't you fluent before you even traveled for a few days? And this time I could feel the difference. And because I am one who loves to get in there and feel what's different, to learn what's different so that I can perpetuate this. I mean, if I'm feeling a bit more secure about myself, wouldn't I want to perpetuate that? Wouldn't I want it to be on board? But I also want to know, how did that come about? Like, how did I get to the place that this feeling is what I'm feeling? So it's a combination of being very present and knowing what I'm feeling in the moment, and also being curious about, well, wait a minute. This is usually when I feel dumb as a rock, and I don't. I actually feel pretty sure of myself in this space, and that's different. So, one of the very first experiences, of course, you have to get, the money, right? You have to just go to the ATM and pull out some money so that you have their tender. I think it's important to do that. I like to honor their system, but also learn about it. And while we were there, previously, again, my critic, and I know this because I experienced this the last time we went to Montreal over a year ago. I was almost petrified to use the ATM machine, and because I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to transfer money into Canadian dollars. Well, the machine does it for you, Vicki. But that was the old wiring of, you're not going to know how to do this and you're going to screw it up. Well, this time when we got there, it wasn't even there. And I've been working incredibly detailed at this and introspectively, and it is work. Anybody who tells you that reflection or self-awareness or any of that isn't work, it's all a joy, is not doing the actual deep diving and understanding how they're wired. So as we there were two machines by side, and I got up, plunked my card in, already had my transaction, and Mike's like, how do you put the card in? And I'm like, oh, it just goes right there, and it goes in lengthwise. And I was standing there waiting for him to finish his thing. And I had this wave come over me, and I'm like, huh, I actually knew how to do that. And the reason I bring this up is we tend to overlook and not give ourselves credit for the things that are seemingly small. And just like micro movements matter, these small things, seemingly small things, matter as well. Because again, I remember the last time we were there, me hanging back, and I don't think I even got cash. I think I used my debit card the whole time because I didn't want to screw it up. So this feeling of being competent and being capable in this everyday transaction can reinforce and will reinforce to myself. And I hope you hear this for yourself too. Find something small that seems small, an everyday thing, but you would have been nervous about doing. Sometimes it's calling to make your own doctor's appointment, or it's calling the IRS to find out how to change a situation, how to arrange a payment detail, or, maybe it's asking, what's really going on with my car, even though you probably won't understand all the words, that's fine. You still want to ask and you still want to know. So this experience will reinforce when I have something where I'm feeling doubtful about my capabilities. And I used to say, well, you learn to tie your shoes, right? You can do anything because you learn to tie your shoes. So this is along the same premise. That moment for me was a moment of awareness that I knew how to do this. I am an asset to our travel because the comparison model, it is the thief of joy. And like Mike has never, ever, ever intimated that I wasn't as smart or that I didn't know things. He often says the opposite. But I felt in that moment that I could be an asset if I just speak up, if I trust my own intellect and my intelligence. But because he's traveled much more than I have, I would defer. But you know what? Common sense comes in handy and the ability to, traverse things and not be afraid of technology. When we did self-checkout, everything's in French and a different computerized system than we have here. I mean, scanning is still the same, right? But as we're trying to figure it out, I put myself back in that place of, well, it was easy to get the money out. So I'm not going to blow anything up here, right? The worst that happens is I have to call a person over and they'll be happy to help me because they want to take my money. So, and I whipped right through that thing and he's like, how'd you do that? And I said, well, some of it is intuition. Some of it is feeling which button to push. Some of it's experience of having run a cash register, but also self-checkout, which I don't mind. I don't like that it takes jobs away from people, but I don't mind getting myself out of the store quicker. It's fine. So as I'm going through this process, I started to have more and more fun with this. And the idea that I actually do know things and I could feel the calming of those messages received younger in life that were very mixed messages for me. I would be told, don't be so smart, but we need your help. We need you to figure this out. And I would be told, this is none of your business. And then half an hour later, my mother would be coming to me and asking, what should we do in this situation? Sometimes even about paying a bill. And I'm like, don't worry about it. I'll get another babysitting job and I'll pay that bill. It'll be fine. And this is stuff that I hadn't really even told my siblings about because at the time I thought it was normal. I like to help. I think it did help me develop some life skills that I needed later in life and being a parent and running a business and everything. So I wonder if there are things you're doing in your life right now that you are underestimating as being catalysts to embracing your own brilliance and allowing your own intelligence to show up and to experience life in a way that is more interactive and playful. Like, what would it look like? What would it feel like to go into a new situation feeling like you already had some scaffolding, like you already had some skill sets on board? And this was one of the things that came up when I was writing that I'm willing to experience not knowing because then life opens up and I can use my intuition and my gut and my knowing to help support when I don't intellectually know something. And you have that capability too. Just think about a time where you weren't sure what was the best course of action. And you were like, you know what, I'm going to do this. And you made a decision and you went and did it. Your intuition likely rang in there more effectively than your logical mind. We just tend to go to the logical mind way more often. Hey there, fabulous souls. I wanted to take a minute and invite you to a live interactive session every Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube at Vicki Baird Coaching. I'll be answering questions, diving into thought-provoking discussions, and forming deep connections with each and every one of you in the time that allows. I believe the true connection happens when we come together, when we share our thoughts, and then we can inspire one another. I know I live well by example and to mentor up, and that's what I'd like to create. This event is a golden opportunity for us to connect on a personal level and create some memories. Whether you're a fan of my podcast or someone curious to learn more, this live event is for you. It's a space where we can share ideas, explore new perspectives, and grow together with respect and humor. Save the date and join me Wednesdays at 5 p.m. at Vicki Baird Coaching on YouTube. And let's create an unforgettable experience filled with laughter, insights, and genuine connection. I'll see you there. So, as I was feeling this out and we're walking around one of the areas, I can't remember what, I don't think we were in, no, we weren't in Old Quebec yet. One of the areas around where we stayed, and just peeking in the stores and everything. And there was a bookstore, and Mike is a big music collector. And often, this works out really well for us. Often, the stores that have the music have books. So I will go in and peruse and add to the collection that grows, so seems seemingly on its own, but here at the house. And he will go look to the CDs or the vinyl or something that's there, right? So as we're in this place, I was kind of not interested. Didn't want to add to my books, was basically what was happening. I felt like I need to read the ones I already have that I've purchased and do the minimalist thing. But then I kept getting pulled over to this one bookshelf. And this goes to trusting my intuition and also trusting not knowing, because 99.9% of those books were in French. I was not going to be able to read them. There was at some point my own critic was saying, what's the point? Like there are no English books here, and forget learning to read it just yet. We have committed to learning how to speak it so that the next time we go back, we are at least conversational out of respect, but also because we love the area and we know we'll be going back. So as I'm walking around the store, I was like, okay, Spirit, what are you guiding me to? What book should I be looking at? And I was pulled to this bookshelf, and right in front of me were two of the books in the series of books that I'm reading. I had book 3 and I needed 1 and 2 because even though they kind of stand alone, I wanted the backstory and the history and everything. Just found this author, Lisa Gardner. If you don't like missing person stories or crime or anything like that, I would not recommend it. But that's how I relax. So I had read another series of hers and then found out that she had this series, and I had book 3, and I was like, with me on vacation, I was going to just start it anyway. And then on that shelf, I see book 2, and I was like, oh my goodness, it's in English. And then I was so excited. So I just picked it up. I thought that was my win. So we go wandering around, the table that they always put in the entrance to a bookstore to entice you to buy all those. And book 1 was there in paperback in French. And I was like, that's just funny. Okay. Now I feel like Spirit is showing off. And then I was humorous about it. And I said, that's really good. Thank you. But I actually need it in English. And so I'll leave this here for someone else. So then I'm wandering around, and because I'm so in the flow, and this is an example of being in the flow and being present. And yeah, of course, it's easier when you're on vacation. However, you can do this at any point. So I felt pulled back to that other bookshelf, and I'm like, all right, I'll go back over there. The next shelf down was book 1 in English. It had been put back in a different order. And I bought them both because, well, first of all, they were less expensive than I could buy them here in the States. And second of all, I felt like that was such a gift for me, allowing myself to be in flow, to not know how this has to go, to not figure out, okay, we're here. It's 2 miles to walk back to the place. That's going to take us that much time. My brain literally typically does all that stuff. And I was like, so grateful to have the physical evidence of what being in the flow looks like, but also what listening to that unsupportive side of the ego or the critical side that is just in old patterns, right? It's in the West, it's in that wiring that's not all that supportive. So as I'm telling Mike about this, as we're walking up the street, I had done a little research on the restaurants in the area and stuff, but we hadn't decided what we were going to eat. And Mike looks over and he's like, "Oh, that looks like a fun restaurant." It was the one I wanted to eat at, but hadn't told him yet because we're not big planners. Like we joke what's for dinner by 11 o'clock in the morning, but we kind of go with the flow and follow our stomach and see if it's hungry and what we want. So as I'm walking around and we locate this restaurant, oh my goodness, the most amazing tuna I've had in this lifetime. I'm still saying to myself, this is what it feels like to believe in yourself. Like this is what it feels like to trust and to stretch it out, because I've had moments of it and I've certainly had a lot of bravado in my lifetime where I do just move through things and it looks like from the outside that I have absolutely no fear, but that's not true. I have all of the wiring that every human has, and that creates doubt, and it comes with doubt. It doesn't create doubt. It comes with doubt. So I took that to a further exploration of this. I figure while I'm here, let me see, how much can I expand? How much can I ask of my own self to learn about me, to bump up against any like limiting belief systems or doubts that I still have? And let's see, basically, let's get ready to rumble, but in a way that's kind and exploratory. And I remember looking around, feeling so grateful. The city is so clean. Everything is so nice. Even the font on their signs is beautiful. And I did this energy practice that I'm going to ask you to consider. I'll never tell you what you have to do, but consider using this as a practice. What I did was, as we were walking, I mean, we did over 36 miles in 3 days. So there was a lot of looking around, and there's not always talking when you're walking that much. You're not yammering the whole time. So as I'm observing everything, I was thinking, wow, I want to be fully immersed in being here. And I'm going to express gratitude, even if I'm not saying it out loud, about how clean this place is. And people are very nice and they're accommodating. And that there were things for me to learn. And yeah, my brain was tired by the time we left. I have so much compassion for immigrants. Because we only had to figure out how to get point A to point B and what to eat and all of that. We didn't have to navigate rent or jobs or insurance. So think about that the next time you're working with someone, or you're get to interact with someone who English is not their first language, because that's a lot of work and we ought to be more respectful. I'll get down off my soapbox now. But as I'm walking around, I'm recognizing that this is an opportunity to also take up full space. No one is asking anything of me. This is an amazing opportunity that we've created for ourselves to travel and to not really have anything on the itinerary, but kind of go with the flow. And as I'm looking around, I'm expressing gratitude for the Canadian government, for the people, for the ability to walk from the place that we rented. Granted, it added 4 miles one way. No, round trip to anywhere we wanted to be, but that's okay. And I was feeling this gratitude of the different ways that we were connecting and communicating with people. We had a delightful waitress who spoke very little English. So we had so much fun playing charades because she was right there willing to do it and expressing what we needed. And, for me to be able to say sans gluten, please don't put gluten in my food, and to connect with eye contact and smiling and gesturing and gratitude and a good tip and all of the ways that we communicate but don't realize on a daily basis. And to bring appreciation to that, I feel like brought my vibration up. It brought my own frequency up another level, which just kept adding to the joy of the experience. And yes, we slept really well at night because that's a lot of walking. And I felt empowered within myself, not knowing because I was curious to know. And that's a huge shift in my brain set, in my belief systems. And I wanted to bring that to you today to ask when you're feeling insecure, inferior, not enough, all the not enoughs, right? Not smart enough, not rich enough, not active enough, all the enoughs. Can you apply this concept of feeling empowered that I don't know, that I might know that I feel not enough, which means I don't know something, but something in me is telling me there's more of me available. There's more for me to know. There's more for me to experience. And I'm curious to know. I want to understand what is it that makes me tick? Like, what is it that has my unique wiring about it? And then how can I become curious enough that I can create an action? So what's my wiring in the West? How can I create an action towards the East? And in this case, acknowledging that I'm curious to learn is the action. Like, I didn't even have to follow through. I could have gone through the checkout line, let somebody else check me out, which we did do a couple times just for the sake of flow. But it's so freeing. And that's why I decided to scrap the other podcast episode and kind of go on this rambling one, because I want to encourage that for you. I know there are likely messages there of, suppress who you are. Don't be as big energy as you are or were in your childhood. Like, don't admit that you don't know something, but that gets us all into trouble. If we would just admit that we don't know, but we're willing to learn or curious to learn, or maybe you don't want to learn. I mean, there's things I don't want to learn. I have no interest in learning, and I'm very happy to let those that are interested in it do it. But it's very freeing to take that level of judgment off of yourself that I'm an adult. I ought to know everything at this point, and maybe I'm an expert in my field. I should know everything. Nah, you just have to know 10% more than the ones you're helping. By definition, expert. Or I don't know what to do with my kids or how to help my kids. By admitting that, you will bring in the help that is available to you. The universe will respond to that. So could you practice the idea, if not the application just yet, but the idea that I get to feel empowered not knowing. I get to collect information. I mean, why would Google be so successful if we weren't all seeking or searching for some kind of answer, right? Well, what if the empowerment is really in the fact that you get to say, I don't know. And then doors open, information comes to you, gets presented to you. And then because you have a curiosity, which is what your soul is wired with. Everybody's soul is wired with a curiosity to come into this physical experience and eventually get to this place where you admit you don't know and you're okay not knowing because you don't feel like there's a teacher standing over your shoulder that's going to mark you wrong in a derogatory way, not in a helpful, corrective way. Or there's not a parent who's giving you such freaking mixed messages that you don't know whether you're coming or going. You don't know if you were an adult from the time you were 4 years old or that you get to be a child now when it's appropriate and playful. So if you could give yourself the permission to not know, to feel like I'm okay in this situation, not knowing, then it would open so many doors up. Think about a job interview, right? Where you admit what it is that you don't know. They're going to ask you, they're going to ask you, what is something that you feel you could improve upon? You may as well know what it is before you go in, and maybe you can improve upon it, and then you'll have something new to find out about yourself. So I feel like we all deserve, and you deserve, to feel liberated from the have to know it all and have to pretend I know it all to I don't know. And I love that because then you're also going to be open to the teachers coming to you or the information showing up for you or the books showing up on that bookshelf and you now know what you're reading for the next probably 3 months. I tend to fall asleep after 4 or 5 pages. I get to stretch my books out. Okay, what if you allowed yourself to be open and curious and exploratory and experiencing the magic that is a part of our lives when we allow it? It's so exciting to feel liberated from a previous message of you have to know. I know that this quiets the imposter syndrome, right? Because if your brain's not playing that game of you're an imposter, they're going to find out. If you call it on its shit and you're like, yeah, I actually don't know what I'm doing here, then the imposter doesn't have a role in your head because you just got rid of its job. We were doing a project. I'm just reminded of this. We were building a dog fence because we just got the most squishy dog. Oh my goodness, she's adorable. And her name's Willow, and she likes to sleep, so we call her Willow the Pillow. But we were building a dog fence before we went to pick her up, and I had not helped with that before. And Mike, having been educated before when he was mansplaining, preemptively said to me, now I'm not mansplaining, but this is what we have to do in this. I was in charge of the U nails or whatever they're called. I had to hit those in while he was holding the wire and we were getting it situated and everything because you don't want me making sure things are level. I don't care. So I actually don't apply myself there. So he's explaining this to me and I paused him and I said, I so appreciate that you're sensitive to the fact that there's mansplaining in this world. But if I haven't done something before and I've told you I've not done this, then you're not mansplaining. You are explaining how to do this. And I am here to learn because you know more than I know. And this happened before we went away. And it occurred to me that, oh, when I feel like it's perfectly okay for me to say, I don't know something, I need to get some help, or I need to do some research on this, and there's nothing wrong with me because I don't know something, it occurred to me, I wouldn't care if somebody mansplained to me because I would know that that was their need to be the one in charge. So therefore, they have some insecurities, and that's none of my damn business unless you're hiring me as a coach, and then it is my business. But as I thought about that, I was like, oh, that was kind of the precursor to this. I felt it was important to say to him, mansplaining here. You are helping me to understand that sometimes there's an angle that these little buggers go in better at. And it was true. So it's not about your worth if you don't know something. It's about the opening and the possibility of you expanding. That's what it's telling you. And even if it's something you've been shown before and you just can't recall, it's still not about your worth. You don't lack intelligence because you forgot something or because you haven't been in a position to learn whatever it is you're learning right now. We need time. Our brain needs time to put the pictures together and the wiring and all of that. So if you can set yourself a course of appreciation and acceptance by practicing this idea of, I don't know, and I'm excited to learn. I don't know, and it makes me a little bit nervous, but go ahead, help me, teach me. You will expand your life exponentially because all of the breaks and all of the limitations, well, not all of them, but most of the limitations that had been there because at some point, maybe you were shamed for not knowing something, or you were given a poor grade on something because you didn't apply yourself. That's different than not knowing. So I learned to turn my intelligence down. I learned to turn my frequency down a lot of the times for the sake of others until I reached my mid 40s and realized, you know what, I'm done with this because it wasn't helping others anyway for me to pretend that I didn't understand what was going on or that I couldn't see clearly through their BS. But I learned to turn down all of that. So I had to learn to turn it back up to the level that works for me. And in doing that, had to unwire and rewire. It's kind of like, gotta unplug things and then plug them back in again. The permission, the thrilling aspect of knowing things that someone else might not know so that I can share. And I can also say to them, it's okay that you don't know. You know things I don't know. And we can share that. So I would love for you to see yourself as the gift you are and as the brilliance that you bring this world and that the uniqueness that you bring this world. And I would love for you to learn to be kinder to yourself and more considerate by grasping this idea that what I don't know, I can learn if I'm interested in it. Don't have to learn anything you're not really interested in, unless it pays the bills and you need that job for right now. But to feel free of this minimizing of ourselves, wouldn't that be awesome? Like, take a moment and feel that. What would that feel like? What would it feel like to relax and admit you don't know something, to feel the excitement of learning, and to release the judgment for having not known what you just don't know yet? Like that would be you connecting your south side, your soul cell or your human self to your north, which is the soul cell. And I feel like it would allow for an easing of the tension that we often carry around and this idea of perfection that just does not exist. It just doesn't, except maybe in kitty cat's toe beans. They're pretty perfect. This exploration of your potential through this process will be lifetime. It's not something that you flip a switch on, but it is something that you can build on and that you can continue to embrace about yourself. So first, let's start with acknowledging what you do know. Catch yourself throughout the day doing something. Maybe you do it maybe you just absolutely know how to get 12 kids in line to the lunchroom because you've done it for years. Catch yourself and acknowledge that, oh, I'm really good at this actually. And any of the more mundane, I'm going to put quotes around that because I want them to be masterful, but any of the more mundane tasks that you do, acknowledge, pause, acknowledge, give yourself credit. I really believe there's a reason that we can pat ourselves on the back, and it's not just because you might have an itch on your shoulder blade. It's to actually pat ourselves on the back. So take my rambling experience through my journal and through recounting how I was feeling there in Canada and take what resonates throughout the rest. But I hope you will allow yourself to open up to all that is still available to you to learn. If you're here and you're sucking oxygen, you're here to learn. So you may as well be excited about it. And then the next time, and I think there will be, there's an experience where you feel that you're kind of trembling, you don't know something, oh boy, that flush is going to happen. You take a moment, you take a breath, and you say to yourself, nope, we've already had this discussion. I am excited to learn, and I would not yell at a 3-year-old for not knowing something. This is me learning. Because self-compassion is going to help you unwind trauma. It's going to help you release the critic that lives in the attic. And it's going to help you enjoy life and be playful about things. So thank you very much. I hope this has helped. And I will see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to this episode of Intuition, Your Success Compass. I appreciate you being here. If you would like more information about developing your intuitive skills, removing those blocks, and creating the life that feels the most successful to you, then head on over to vickibaird.com. That's VICKIBAIRD.com. And check out the courses, the groups, and the Spaces app that will allow you to be part of our community and know about upcoming events and specials. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next episode.